from our streaming viewers.
All right, please proceed.
Okay, regarding the parallel reality wheel, do we think of it as a large wheel we spin for prizes like on a game show, or more like a steering wheel we can control?
You can think of it either way. As we explained, you can use your imagination to alter it however you wish, as long as you get the opportunity to explore, as in the guided meditation, the idea of a particular parallel reality that will allow you to stretch your senses, so to apply that stretching to your present timeline. So you may do it however you wish.
Okay. And when you see so many realities at the same time, how do you know which one you are actually in?
We know only, and this is all we need to know, that we are always navigating through the ones that are in alignment with the state of being we have chosen to be in. Therefore, we automatically navigate through all the ones that are appropriate for us, creating an overall timeline that is appropriate for us. So we don't have to specifically know exactly which timeline we are in at any given moment, because we know it's the right one for us.
And for us, how do we know which one we're actually in, since we can see so many?
Again, if you follow the formula that we have given you, you are automatically navigating through the ones that are in alignment with the state of passion, with your true self, as you choose to be in that particular state of vibrational frequency. You don't have to intellectually know which one you're in. You don't know that right now. Remember, you are creating what appears to be your timeline, building it up out of many different parallel realities already. It's not that you have to specifically know at any given moment which one you're in, because you're shifting billions of times per second. All you have to know is that the combination of parallel realities you're shifting through is creating a sense of continuity in an overall timeline experience that is aligned with the state of being that you choose to be in. You can't have it otherwise, because again, remember, the physics is you can't experience something that is not reflective of the state of being you're in. So in that sense, you are always in the parallel reality, positively or negatively, that is aligned with the state of being you're in. So that's why it's so crucial to follow the formula and always be acting on your passion, because then you know that if you are precisely following the formula, you're only going to navigate through those parallel realities that are the ones that are conducive to continuing to expand you in positive, creative, loving way.
Okay, and what evidence will we have that we are living in a higher dimension? And how do you know if you've already shifted to a higher dimension?
More and more synchronicity that serves you in a positive way, more and more flexibility and malleability in the idea of time and space, so that things can happen in an amount of time that might some way seem almost impossible that it could have happened that way. You will experience less of the idea of time. You'll be living more in the present in a variety of ways. And over time, you will see fewer and fewer and fewer representations over the years of realities that are simply not vibrationally compatible with you. It depends on the rate at which you yourself allow yourself to remain in the positive state that determines how quickly or slowly you may move through this process. But nevertheless, you will see more symptoms. Also, your senses will expand so that you can begin to perceive things that were heretofore invisible to you. Other dimensional beings, the idea that people are seeing energy, lights, UFOs, other kinds of information being received by you, downloaded into you in a more perceivable way, that you're more consciously aware of receiving this kind of information, that you're becoming more lucid in physical reality and seeing it as a projection of consciousness, experiencing it more that way, so that from time to time, physical reality seems a little less solid, a little less real. These are many of the symptoms, not all, but many of the symptoms of accelerating into the fourth density, higher physical reality vibration.
Thank you. If there's parallel realities, each one having a slightly different version of me, then how do I know choosing a parallel reality can make a difference, since I'm in all of them?
You are not in all of them. The idea is that each of those versions is its own distinct person. But the idea is that what you experience through continuity as a change in yourself is not a change in your personality. It is a shift of your consciousness to express itself through a completely different personality, a completely different person. So any change, as we have said, is a total change. And since you are shifting billions of times per second, you are literally shifting your consciousness through billions of people per second, billions of versions of you. But versions of you are not you in the sense of the personality. It's only you in the sense of your consciousness, your overall consciousness that perceives itself to be itself. But any change in what you consider your personality to be is actually your consciousness now perceiving through a different person entirely.
And so that also applies to the idea of being an infinite being that always exists, because everything is always perceived as happening, in a sense, to you.
Correct.
Regardless of what environment, what reality you're experiencing.
Correct.
It's a very interesting phenomenon.
Yes. But that's how it works in terms of the different levels working together. When someone uses the word I, me, you, things like that, they have to understand what level they're actually referring to. If you're referring to the personality level, well, that's constantly changing because it's a projection of consciousness. It's an artificial construct anyway. In a sense, you are channeling through different people in different realities. Different versions, so to speak, are different people, and you're constantly shifting through them. But when you talk about yourself perhaps as the idea of an oversoul, then you can constantly say, yes, I am having all these different experiences, all these different incarnations simultaneously. But the individual soul, the individual higher mind, the individual physical mind and personality can only refer to itself, and it is not anyone else. It is simply who it is as an individual expression or reflection of the higher levels of the greater being that you are.
So if your personality construct is constantly changing, but it always continues to exist, is that correct?
Yes, because other aspects of the greater being are expressing themselves through it simultaneously. It's not a matter of the idea of leaving it empty. It's a matter of the idea of understanding that what, quote unquote, your greater being experienced a moment ago as coming through one personality is still being experienced by that aspect of your greater being. But now the greater being has also allowed itself to experience another personality perspective, and that's going on simultaneously too. It's simply shifting, in a sense, its attention in a certain way to allow that personality to think it's the only one having that experience. I know this can be a little bit confusing to the idea of third and fourth density physical reality perceptions, but nevertheless, it's simply a matter of understanding that everything is going on simultaneously. Nothing ever actually stops being experienced. It's just that holographically, simultaneously, the greater being can experience, or the personality can be experienced by the greater being as being the only thing that is being experienced at that moment. But that perspective is only coming from the physical personality. That perspective is not coming from the greater being, the oversoul, or something higher up. That's experiencing things simultaneously.
And so since all aspects continue to exist and they exist simultaneously, then technically you can connect with any version of your personality that has ever existed during your timeline by reaching out?
Well, yes, you can. And that's why we say now it's very important for you to start being informed by your so-called future self rather than your past self in order to be pulled, in a sense, toward more of that particular aspect or expression of the greater being that is expressing itself as that individuated personality that will serve you in more positive ways.
And so often as a healing technique, people use this idea of going back and visiting a past version of themselves that may have suffered some sort of trauma.
Yes.
Is that the idea of actually you're shifting timelines to another version of you that I mean, what's happening there?
Well, you're shifting to a version of yourself that is using another version for that purpose. In other words, constantly you are creating a third version, a third personality, a simulacrum. If you are aware of yourself in the present and aware of the idea of the version of you in the past, then there has to be a third personality that contains both of those ideas if you're using it that way.
And then those become unique scenarios unto themselves. Yes.
They do.
It's very fascinating.
It's very multidimensional. It's really important in this context for this conversation to understand exactly how holographic and multidimensional all of you actually are.
It's becoming more clear.
Which could be one of the symptoms of accelerating into fourth density, in that these concepts become more clear.
And it's not so overwhelming to think about the idea of all of these different versions of the self, and the idea that you can, in a sense, time travel and communicate with these different versions and help them accelerate in their experience.
Yes. But again, the idea is that you don't necessarily have to pay attention to them individually in that way. That's why, again, we say that if you're simply following the formula, the ability to navigate and deal with these things in the way that actually serves the individual you are being at that moment is built in automatically to following the formula. It's not like you have to pay attention to all the details. A holistic point of view or a holistic experience, by acting on your passion and following the formula, will contain whatever aspects of this whole experience you actually need to intellectually wrap your mind around. But that doesn't mean you have to be aware of every single detail to know that it's working just fine to your advantage, to your benefit.
And then refocusing on the future self,
yes,
is what allows you to have a much more unlimited perspective of what you can become, what you can do now, what's possible.
Yes, in a sense. You still remain in the present, but you can be informed by the idea you call your future self, which most people positively will assume is in a higher state. Now, there might be some people that assume that a future self is in a lower state, but obviously that's not the choice we are encouraging you to make. The idea is that in the idealized definition of a future self, it is that version that has a more comprehensive understanding and more of an experience of utilizing the formula in a way that benefits you, so that it becomes more aware that it has the capacity to encourage you toward itself almost magnetically. So if you key into that magnetic attraction to the idea of a higher vibrational future self, you will allow yourself to gravitate through the timelines in that direction.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yes.
Now, some questions that came up about last week and what's currently happening. Some of the states are now opening up and loosening restrictions. Can you share with us how this is going to work out and what we can expect as a result of this?
Well, metaphorically, you are literally experimenting with different, quote unquote, states of being, so that you can see what the choices every state is making or every city is making will do with respect to the situation that you're all going through. So you're experimenting, you're opening up to experiment and see what works for you, so that, again, you're giving yourself a multitude of choices. And by certain states and certain cities and certain countries deciding how they wish to go through this experience, you are given a sparkling opportunity to see in your own discernment what does and doesn't work for you.